What's going on, everybody? So today what we're going to be going through is integrating Toggl with an Airtable CRM. And so Toggl is a tool that tracks time entries, and Airtable is a place where we're going to match those time entries against invoices for time for clients. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Bengreen. I'm the owner of optimizeis, and what we do is we help businesses build systems just like this in Airtable. It's actually going to be my CRM that I'm going to use for clients. So I had previously recorded a video where I went into this automation and I've been running it because I'm transitioning a lot of things from Zapier to Make. This video is going to be going through the building this scenario in Make. Now there were some things that I learned when building it in Make, so we're going to redo everything and we're going to build it the optimal way today. So a few things that I found were, one, when I was making the first video, I don't need to worry about it sending too many records, which I'll explain what that means. But there also was one thing that I was experiencing where I do need to worry about it sending too many records. So this is the Airtable CRM, and we have Toggl time tracking entries in here. It's in a table called Toggl. In this table, what it was doing, or I guess I should explain my workflow a little bit, is when I'm in Toggl, I'll start my time tracker, and then I have Make, or Zapier, I have it check every 15 minutes to see if there's new time entries. I guess something that's different with Make versus Zapier is when it checks every 15 minutes, it finds time entries that are not complete yet. So you'll see here in my Toggl, right here, my Toggl table, there are, because this has been running for the past few weeks, there are a bunch of time entries where there's no end time. And that really messes up my seconds, minutes, hours, messes up all of those. And these are all just sales calls. You can see it does eventually get to the time entry once it comes back and checks. And yes, you can see like here, it came in 3 times. So what I want to do now is add a filter to the scenario in Make. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to rebuild this, and it's going to be the optimal way of doing it. There's certain things I added last time to make sure I didn't add too many, but we're just going to go through that now. So a little bit before you can do really anything in Make, you have to have this set up in Airtable, and you have to be using Toggl. So the way that I use Toggl is I just start the timer, write a little description of the task. So in this case, it just says sales. And then I put a project name and I'm always in the same workspace, so it should be the same workspace, but I just pick a project name, which always links right back to a client in my case. So I'm using projects as clients in Toggl, and I'm using a description just to say what I'm working on. Let's see, what else? So you should have a table in Airtable set up already. And so this is an example of one. What it can look like is just, at minimum, I would always like to have a start time, end time. In this case, Toggl spits out seconds, which is interesting. We then convert those into minutes, convert those into hours. So a few things about this is, here's like the task ID. These are just date fields. This is an input from the scenario in Make. It's just into a number field. We then take that and divide it by 60, and that gets us into minutes. And I have this in here because I'm going to import all of my historical records eventually. And if it is imported, then my seconds are actually going to be in minutes. That's just Zapier maintain the data a little bit differently, which is why that is. Hours is going to be basically the same thing, but converting those seconds into hours by dividing by 60 twice. Then we just have a single line text for description. And then what Toggl does is they give you projects and workspaces based on these IDs that they come up with. But when I'm selecting a project name in Toggl, in this case I'm choosing like sales-bizdev is what it actually calls it, but Toggl has their own way of saying when you select sales-bizdev, it actually is this project ID. And so that's what's getting spit out here into Airtable. Later on, another important thing is we have this linking back to companies. So none of these are linked back to companies because it couldn't find a matching project ID, but that's fine for now. And then non-billable is something I do afterwards, and imported will be something for the import. So those are just a few of the fields that we're going to be filling in as we go through this Toggl integration. Now let's go back to scenarios. So I would open up make.com and we're going to create a new scenario. So our new scenario, we're going to start it off. It's going to go new time entry in make. And then we're going to have a delay. Actually, we'll have a filter. And I'll explain what the filter is. Then we're going to have a delay for 5 minutes. And I'll explain why I have the delay. And then we're going to update the record. Or we're going to update the make time entry. And then we're going to go find a company in Airtable. And then, last but not least, we're going to create the Toggl time tracking entry. So I'll explain a little bit more in detail at each step. But to start off, we just want to name this correctly. So this is Toggl time entry, Airtable optimize CRM. So we're going to add our trigger, which is going to be to Toggl, the app Toggl. It's going to be Toggl track. Now they split this up into sections, so we're going to skip down to the time entry section and we're going to have it watch for time entries. So right here, it's going to say my Toggl connection, which is perfect. Start date, we are going to say, we'll say it's March 19th right now, we'll say March 1st. Limit, we'll say 200. Just, I don't really want to limit myself. Here, you could realistically pick a lower number. If you click on this timer right here, it'll say how often it's going to check. So if you think you might be doing 200 time entries within 15 minutes, you should do that. I'm just going to click OK and we're going to continue through this. So again, start date, as long as it's in the past. I have all my time entries already from Zapier, so I'm not worried about going super far into the past here. So now we should be able to, I think we should be able to run this. If not, okay, perfect. Okay, so it pulled in a bunch of different time entries since then. So now I want to add another module. That module is going to sleep. So like I said, the first one is going to watch for a new time entry, then the second thing is going to sleep. So we're going to say sleep for 10 minutes. Okay, this is seconds. I guess 300 seconds. And for this video, I'm going to shorten this down to 1 second. And then after we are ready for it to go live, we'll make it go live. So why would I have a sleep here? So a lot of times what will happen is I may want to include extra notes in the description of a time entry, or I may want to like shorten the timer or lengthen the timer if I say it started at the wrong time or ended at the wrong time. And so what'll happen is I stop the timer and then I go back and edit the timer in Toggl. But what I don't want to have happen is I don't want it to go into Airtable with the wrong information. And how that happens sometimes is this checks every 15 minutes. If I stop the timer like 5 seconds before it was to check Toggl, and then I was starting to go edit it, it would grab what I had entered into Toggl and feed it into Airtable. So what I do is I'm going to add a 5-minute delay. It's going to then go update this timer, grab any information that I updated in it, and then add the updated information to Airtable. So we're going to click OK here. We are going to add a filter here as well. So the filter, like we were talking about a second ago, is in this CRM right here. I only want to pull it if the end time exists. So I'm going to set up a filter. I'm going to say end time exists. And so I'm going to say stop. And we're going to somehow say, yeah, exists. Perfect. So there's end time exists. It's then going to delay for 1 second for now. Now we're going to say go back into Toggl and update the time entry. So time entry ID is going to be this time entry ID right here. And I'm just going to update it with the same description and not update anything else. And we'll also pick the workspace ID there. We don't need to pick the project ID. Yeah, perfect. All right, so let's click OK there. Now what we want to go do, so now we have our filter set up, we have our sleep set up, it updates it. So now we have all of the relevant info from Toggl. Now what we want to go do is we want to add it to Airtable. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to go into Airtable, and I want it to find the company. That way I have the record ID to link it to the company. Because if you remember, in our Toggl table, the Toggl table is linked to the company table. So you can see this is a linked record to the company table. And when I add the record, I want to have the record ID of the matching company based on the project ID. We're going to go into in a later video my onboarding automation, which is when I onboard a company, I automatically add them to Toggl. What that does is it allows me to create their project ID and then bring their project ID back into Airtable so that this automation works as well. Okay. So let's see. Updated time entry. Now we're going to search for records in our Airtable base. You then pick your base from Airtable. And now we're going to search the companies table. And in this case, we're going to use a formula. So if I open up the Airtable again, how we're going to write this is we're going to say the project ID from, so on our company table, we have a Toggl ID here. So the project ID from Toggl needs to map this Toggl ID in Airtable. And this Toggl ID field doesn't have any spaces before or after. It's just Toggl ID. So now let me throw that over to the side. So we're going to search in the company table here and make. We're going to include a formula. So our formula is going to look like this. It's going to say Toggl ID, which is the Airtable like syntax for the field. It just has curly brackets around it, equals, and then in quotes, we're going to include the, from updated time entry, the project ID right here. So this is exactly what it should look like. It's going to use the project ID from here, because I could even change the project ID. Maybe I'm saying it's going to be sales, but then I update it to be marketing. Sweet. So now that should work out. I want it to output the ID field. Sorting, views, those don't matter right now. All right, so now I have this scenario most of the way done. The last step that we're going to add is in Airtable, we want to create a record. So we're going to pick our optimized base. We're going to say the right table. So we're going to create it in the Toggl table. And now all the fields we're going to fill in are pretty much all of these. So task ID, that would be time entry ID. Start time is going to be the start date, end time, and all of this I'm pulling from the third action, or the third step in this. We're going to have the stop time, seconds. This is going to be the duration. The description of task is going to pull from the description. The project name will pull from the project ID. The client name I will leave empty, because I don't even think that's an option in this one. Workspace ID, I'm going to say that is the workspace ID. Companies, I'm going to add an item here, but I'm actually going to map it in from our previous step. So the companies field is that linked record in the Toggl table, and it's going to link back based on the ID that we found here. So that's going to be this one. We're going to leave this empty, those are some other fields. And now we're going to click OK. So now I want to run this, although I don't think I really actually want to run it on 200 right now. I just want to say run it on 2. we'll see how, I'm still learning a little bit about make, but I think this should work out. Again, it's going to sleep here for 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to go into Toggl and submit a time entry. So one of my go-to time entries is just unfocused work. It's when I'm just like, say I'm on Twitter or something, a little bit of a waste of time. It's unfocused. It's not real work, it's just unfocused work. So I just logged that time entry. And now we're going to click run once. Sweet. So I see no failures. Now let's go over to Airtable and see how that looked. So if I go to the Toggl table, I'm going to change this to unfocused work. You can see all of the times that I've said unfocused work. Now here, 3:19, today's the 19th. I did it for about 3 minutes, so that checks out. Sweet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test our filters on there. So I'm going to log the same time entry for unfocused work, and I'm going to say that started now 4 minutes ago. I'm going to log that, and I'm going to start this same one but put unfocused work 2. And I'm going to say that started 2 minutes ago, but I'm not going to end that timer. So what I've done off screen now is I've logged a new time entry and I've started another one. And we're going to see how that plays out here in make. So now I'm going to say run that again. Sweet. So that worked out. Let me open up the Airtable again. What I was hoping to not see is it saying 2 along here, because you can see our filter must have caught 1. Yeah. You can see it stopped bundle 2 because that one field did not exist, which that is exactly what we wanted. So now we can see here in Airtable, it added it again, this time for 4 minutes, and that is working out well. Sweet. So that is how you integrate Toggl with Airtable. There's one major step that makes this work really well for me that I did not show in this video, but that I will throw in the end screen here. It will be to my onboarding automation. And what my onboarding automation does is when I close a new client, I just click one button, which usually just triggers a webhook. That webhook then adds that client to Toggl, which then updates Airtable with their Toggl ID, their project ID. That automation also adds a Slack channel, sends a templated message in the Slack channel, makes sure the client's status is the right status, which would say like closed one. And I think that's about it. So that's what that video right here in the end screen will show you how to do, namely take care of the Toggl side of things. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions, but go ahead and watch that video here if you want to see the full onboarding automation of how to do this when you close a new client as a hourly consulting client.